Hey guys, Jordan here from BDS-suspension. Now some of you may recognize me from our video series of our SEMA build, Project Ranger X, our 2019 Ford Ranger. Now, it's a pretty cool truck, but it's just one of the many trucks that we work on here in the shop. Today we have a 2018 Toyota Tundra that we're going to be putting a 3-inch BDS coilover system on. Now this particular truck is owned by our friends at Victory 4x4. Now they had a few ideas on how to upgrade it and we think we can help them out. So with that being said, we're going to take this daily driver and make it a complete capable overlander. It's even going to be able to go at high speed traveling off-road, and it's even going to be able to run to town when you just want to do errands. BDS has several options and accessories for our 3, 4.5, and even 7-inch lift kits for this. Now today we're going to be taking a look at the 3-inch coilover system and showing you kind of what it's all about and how it's installed. Now this 3-inch coilover system comes complete with everything you need to lift your 2007 and up Tundra, and even allow you to get those 33 to 34-inch tires. Now in this kit, it comes complete with 2.5 remote resi Fox coilovers, BDS performance upper control arms, and you'll even get a small diff drop bracket to improve those CV operating angles. And with the rear, you'll get extended length rear shackles, and you'll even get some Fox 2.0 shocks to round out your rear. Now this install is pretty straightforward. After getting the truck put on the hoist and getting the wheels and tires off, the first thing we got to do is remove the sway bar link from the lower control arm. The next step is we're going to loosen, not remove, loosen the lower control arm bolt. This is going to allow your arm to swing out of the way for what we're going to do next. Next, we're going to remove the 2 bolts that attach the lower control arm to the lower ball joint. Next up is to remove the lower strut bolt. Big things! So next we're going to raise the vehicle up and remove those jacks and allow those arms to swing down. So the next step is we're going to tackle the strut. So we already took off the lower bolt off the control arm. So now there's just 4 studs with nuts up on the top that we're going to have to loosen. And once you loosen those off, that strut will come right out. Now that we have the strut removed from the vehicle, it's time to install the Fox coilovers. Now there's a couple of stipulations behind this. So when you install these, you want to make sure that the reservoir is pointed towards the front of the vehicle. And then also, we told you to save the mounting bolt holes for the bottom for the strut, but just depending on what model of the truck, it might not work, but we provide the other bolts to be able to install it correctly. BDS offers 2 versions of Fox 2.5 factory series coilovers. Both use the same proprietary shock technology, with one using a non-adjustable remote reservoir, while the other is set to an optional DSC reservoir. The DSC stands for dual speed compression and refers to the 2 adjustment knobs to the dial on the high speed and low speed compressions, setting to the dial on the truck's damper firmness to meet your needs. Now that we got the coilover installed, it's time to connect that arm to the bottom of the coilover. So there's a few things that we got to focus on here. So they give us 2 spacers to clear that gap of the coilover to the arm. So they'll make sure that the big spacer goes in the front of it and the little spacer goes in the back of it. And we are going to have to use our provided bolt because the factory one just isn't quite big enough to what we need to do. So when we work on vehicles, things tend to get in our way. This skid plate is a prime example. Now, we have to remove these two sway bar bolts here, and you can see it's obviously in the way. We have to remove these two bolts for our coilover reservoir mounting bracket. So next step, we got to take off the upper control arm. So the first step of that is you're going to have to remove these two plastic because, like we said earlier, things just tend to get in your way. Easy access. After removing the plastic, next step is to remove this 10mm bolt, which is holding on the ABS wire. Now that we have the ABS wire removed from the top of the arm, we have to remove this big bolt. Now, you can see that this bolt is pretty big. It runs from all the way here to here. Now, you have to finagle that a little bit. You might even have to pop the hood and be able to reach out in there and pull it out. Before we do that, we got to disconnect the upper ball joint from the steering knuckle. Now, sometimes removing the nut doesn't break that loose, so you might have to tap the knuckle with a hammer, and it'll pop that ball joint right out of the top of that knuckle. Just like that. I told you it's going to take some finagling. You can see I had difficulty pulling the bolt from underneath there, so I had to pop the hood. And you have to move a couple hoses to remove the bolt. But you're probably going to need two hands just for somebody to wiggle it because the arm likes to bend and won't be able to pull the bolt out. So you just got to work at it and eventually you'll be able to get it out, but it's kind of a pain. Victory. As you can see, as we get ready to install the BDS upper control arm and we remove the factory one, you can just see how much more beefier and stronger the BDS performance upper control arms are. Now, if you want to get to know more about these upper control arms, we have a video about them on our YouTube channel. Now, we're getting ready to install the upper control arm. Now, putting this new one in is just about the same as taking the old one out. It's pretty straightforward. You can see how big this bolt is. And we just got to, like I said, finagle it right in there. And it's pretty straightforward, as I said, but it'll take a little bit of work, but we'll get it done. Now that we got our upper control arm in, the first thing that we got to do is snug it up. So you don't want to over torque it because you still got to get a little bit of movement because we want that movement so we can attach that upper ball joint to the steering knuckle. And then once you get that attached to there, you just want to snug that up too. And then we're going to grease that upper ball joint as well. And you got to make sure you do that because that's very crucial if you don't. Now when you're installing this upper control arm to the steering knuckle, you put on what's called a castle nut. So now with that being said, we need to line up those slots on the castle nut to the hole on the upper ball joint stud to be able to slide this cotter pin through. We get done greasing the top of the ball joint, we have to install these caps. Now the cap comes with an O-ring and this cap right here. And I went the luxury of already putting this one on this, but just so you can see, this is the O-ring and this is the cap, and it just slides right around. It fits on there. Now BDS is generous enough to give you some grease. You just wipe it all around there right there, and it makes that slide in a lot easier from when you put that in. Easy as that. Now that we got everything attached here, the next step is to remove this ABS wire bracket. Now, you can go about this a couple different ways, but you can see there's just a couple tabs on the bracket itself. So you're just gonna wanna pull back on those and that will release the bracket from the lines. Now, you can see I'm underneath the vehicle because we're done with the driver's side. Now, since we're done with the passenger side, all you gotta do is just repeat the steps on the driver's side and it should go pretty smoothly. But now we're onto the diff drop. So the first thing you gotta do is remove these two bolts right here, and that allows the diff to swing out of the way so you can put your provided spacers in there. Now that we got the diff dropped down, you can see that there's plenty enough space to put that spacer right there. So since you're dropping that down and giving that space, you need a little bit longer bolt. So we provide you with a new bolt and a new nut to be able to slide right up in there. At this point, the front of the vehicle is about done. We just got to finish up putting this factory skid plate back on, and once the vehicle's on the ground, we're going to snug a bunch of things up. But for now, let's focus on the rear. Now, the first step is to remove the spare tire, and if you don't know how to do that, it's in the owner's manual, so just read that. Second step is you want to go ahead and get your axle supported on jack stands so we can remove these 4 shackles on each of the leaf springs. Now, right here are the 2 nuts that you need to remove the shackles. There's 2 on each side, that side and the driver's side. And these are the shackles that we need to remove to replace. Now that we got the 2 nuts removed on the shackle, you're going to want to head and hit the stud part that's out of the threaded end and hit it out. And this whole plate right here is all one big assembly. So all you got to do is just give it a little tap. Things fall, be careful. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the orientation of these shackles. So you can see how this part's a little bit longer and where the bend's at, it's shorter. So you're going to want the shorter part up to the frame, and then they're going to be oriented like this, so they're facing the same way but kind of opposite of each other, and they're going to sit just like that. So if you're having troubles getting that bolt into the leaf spring for the shackles, you can go ahead and remove the factory shock, just the factory shock bolt, lower bolt. So when you remove that, you'll be able to raise the jack up, and it should be able to drop that leaf spring down right in place where you need it. Now you see that we got the shackles put in place. You're going to go ahead and run your bolts from the inside of the vehicle to the outside of the vehicle. And you're not going to tighten these up yet because you're going to tighten them when you put the vehicle on the ground. So just snug them up a little bit, but not too much. As you can see, there's 3 holes in the shackle. And with the middle hole, you're going to use a provided spacer. And you're going to run that bolt from inside out. Now that we got the shackles in place, our next step is replace these factory shocks with a pair of our Fox 2.0 series shocks. Now when you're going to do this, there's a nut on top, and if depending on how old the shocks are, you're going to spin on it. You're going to grab a pair of pliers. Now that we got the Fox shock out of the box, it's time to install a few bushings. Now, with the factory OEM hardware, you're going to see that we're going to give you 2 sleeves. So the first sleeve, you can see how it's a little bit sloppy there, and so that's in case you have a different style bolt and it's a little bigger. It'll get that slop out of there. But we're going to use this thicker one, and you can see a lot tighter, a lot better. So it's nice to have an arbor press and always some silicone spray. So you're going to go ahead and spray some of that on there. You can spray it on your bushing. Make sure it's even on each side there. Go ahead and put your bigger sleeve in there. Push her right in. So now that we got our bottom bushing pushed in, you can see that the shock is a stem style. So when you put these on, you want to make sure that, you see how it's kind of coned? You want to have that drop down and have your bushing drop down as well, right in there. And it sits pretty well with it. And then when you push this up in here, it's the opposite on the top. So then your bushing goes right there, and your sleeve spacer part sits right on there. Well, that wraps up this install. Make sure you get the front end aligned, and make sure you torque all the hardware according to the instruction sheet. Well, with that being said, this install video is just kind of an overview of how we do things, but you want to follow the instruction sheet step by step and make sure you do everything correctly. And if that's too far out of your comfort zone, we have a network of installation dealers and salespeople that can help you out. Now, the guys at Victory decided to put a 35-inch Falken tire on 17-inch method wheel. Now, that tire is a bit bigger than what we spec for this kit, but they're going to put a high clearance bumper on there. As you can see, it's got a pretty good stance and also improved capability of it with putting that 3-inch BDS coilover system on it. Stay tuned as our friend from Victory 4x4 take this truck and continue to transform it with armor, bumpers, and more storage and much more. And we're going to turn this Tundra into one cool overland prepped adventure rig.